Chapter 1. The Man in the Bathroom, Who's Afraid of the Big Bad Wolf. In the bathroom of a luxurious 7-star hotel, Summer Miller was humming a ridiculously cheerful tune. Wow, this really is the most high-end hotel in Seaview City. And man, our university must be loaded. Summer sighed. If it weren't for her outstanding grades getting her sent to this competition by the university, she'd never have experienced this kind of service in her life. Bang! Just then, the bathroom door was kicked open. A man suddenly appeared before her. He had choppy, cream blonde hair, and his azure eyes were purer than the sky. With his sharp nose and thin lips, he looked like he had stepped right out of an oil painting. Don't make a sound. The man suddenly stripped off his clothes, revealing a lean, muscular chest, and climbed right into the bathtub with Summer. Summer instinctively covered her private areas. She was about to say something when she saw the man lower his head, and a soft pressure landed on her lips. MMPH, this gorgeous man who had appeared out of nowhere in her bathroom was kissing her. Damn, wrong room looks like a couple's having a romantic bath. At that moment, the sound of chaotic footsteps burst in. Summer glanced over nervously and saw several men in black who looked like bodyguards. They gave the two in the tub a suggestive look, then waved their hands and left. As they departed, they even thoughtfully closed the door for them. Sorry, they were after me. We should be safe now. The man finally broke the kiss. Looking down at the woman beneath him, he felt an uncontrollable flutter in his heart. He'd seen plenty of beautiful women, but this woman, she was different. Pure, that was the word that surfaced in his mind. She was the only woman who had ever given him that feeling. Then, aren't you going to get up? Summer's face was beet red. Don't think you can just steal a girl's first kiss because you're handsome. And while she was taking a bath, no less, my name is Ethan Hawthorne. What's yours? The man got out of the tub and put his clothes back on. Before Summer could answer, footsteps echoed from the doorway again. Damn it, they're still here? Ethan Hawthorne frowned. His eyes landed on a Hello Kitty hair tie Summer had left on the edge of the tub. He suddenly snatched it and hurried away. Hey, still daydreaming? It's your turn for your shift. Her best friend Chloe Jones's voice snapped Summer out of her reverie. Oh, okay. Summer forced a smile and went to the front bar to organize the liquor cabinet. It was her 3rd year in Seaview City. Her studies were entering the most intense final phase. Her design thesis and lab courses filled her schedule to the brim, but after her classes, she still had to come work at this pub. A girl's gotta pay the bills, after all. Ethan Hawthorne. That name had been etched in Summer's heart for 3 years. Her intuition told her that a quick search online would probably reveal everything about him. He had to be some kind of CEO or something. But Summer didn't want to. If he was, then their lives shouldn't have intersected at all. A martini with an olive. A cool, indifferent voice sounded beside her. She saw a pair of long, slender hands with well-defined knuckles resting on the bar. On his wrist was a pink Hello Kitty hair tie. Chapter 2, He Likes Men? The cuff of the man's black suit was neat and crisp, but the hair tie looked old. It was still clean, however, as if it had been cared for meticulously. Summer couldn't help but want to laugh. She wondered if this man had put his girlfriend's hair tie on his wrist and forgotten about it. To keep him from seeing the smile she was suppressing, Summer kept her head down while mixing his drink. But then she heard her coworkers fangirling behind her. Oh my God, it's really him, Ethan Hawthorne, the youngest and most brilliant successor to the Hawthorne Group. All right, stop swooning. He ran out on his own engagement to the socialite Victoria Prescott 3 years ago. What makes you think he'd be interested in any of you? Hearing their discussion, Summer froze. She suddenly felt that the Hello Kitty hair tie on the man's wrist looked very familiar. Everything from 3 years ago flooded back into her mind: cream blonde hair, azure eyes, a smile as bright as the sun, and snatching her hair tie as he rushed away. Summer couldn't resist sneaking a peek at him from under her lashes. He looked almost the same as he had 3 years ago. Time had only added a touch of maturity, toning down his youthful energy. Oh my God, are you kidding me? It was actually Ethan Hawthorne, but the man didn't seem to notice her. He just frowned at his phone. Is my drink ready yet? Right away. Summer fumbled to drop the olive into the drink, handed it to him, and then fled from the bar as if escaping a fire. Oh my God, I'm so jealous of you. I should have never let you cover my shift. You actually got to make a drink for Ethan Hawthorne with your own hands. Back in the staff room, Chloe's voice was filled with envy and admiration. "I just can't believe he'd come to our little pub for a drink." Chloe's eyes were full of adoration as she peeked at the man at the bar. The dim, warm light illuminated the man's face, making his blue eyes seem much deeper. He raised the glass with one hand and downed the martini in a single gulp. After listening to the folk singer on stage for a moment, he stood up and left the pub. His silhouette seemed a little lonely as he walked away. "Chloe, who is he?" Summer's voice held an unconcealable nervousness. Even though she had deliberately avoided learning anything about Ethan Hawthorne all these years, he had reappeared in her life. "You've read romance novels, right?" Chloe asked out of the blue. Summer nodded. "He's basically the male lead from one of those novels, get it?" Chloe explained. "He finished all his studies at 15, went abroad to Harvard, and has 5 doctorates. 3 years ago, when he was 20 and had just returned, his family arranged for him to marry the socialite Victoria Prescott. He ran away from the engagement, and it caused a huge scandal. Seriously, Summer, do you never pay attention to the news?" Summer gave a sheepish smile. She really didn't follow that kind of news. Still, he really was one of those dazzling people. Those memories from 3 years ago should have been forgotten long ago. But why was he still wearing that hair tie on his wrist? Summer's heart skipped a beat. "Well, maybe it's better that you don't," Chloe sighed. "That guy, he doesn't seem to be interested in women at all. Besides his former fiancée, Victoria Prescott, he's had almost no romantic scandals. Sometimes, we all wonder if he's actually into men." Chapter 3. "Go find Ethan Hawthorne." Chloe, what are you talking about?" Summer nearly choked on her own spit. Her best friend never failed to say the most shocking things. "Hey, I was just kidding." Chloe giggled and grabbed her backpack to leave. "Be careful on your way home," Summer reminded her. But Chloe shook her head. "I'm not going home. I found a new part-time job I'm modeling. I can make $500 for a single photo shoot. There's no such thing as a deal that good." "Be careful it's not a scam," Summer said anxiously. But before she could finish, Chloe had already skipped away. That idiot," Summer rolled her eyes, but her mind was completely filled with the image of Ethan Hawthorne. She had no space to worry about Chloe. "Why am I even thinking about him? He probably forgot all about what happened 3 years ago." Summer shook her head, as if trying to fling the image out of her mind. She sat at the bar, occasionally mixing a drink or two for customers, until her shift finally ended at 2 in the morning. "I wonder how Chloe's doing." A sense of unease settled in Summer's heart. Ring, ring, ring. Just then, her phone rang. Summer sobbed. "I should have listened to you, they were scammers. They took nude photos of me, and now they're threatening to release them online if I don't give them $500,000 in 2 days. "What? Nude photos?" Hearing Chloe's tearful voice, Summer's heart clenched. They were both from ordinary families, barely making ends meet by working while studying. How could they possibly come up with $500,000? "And they said not to call the police." Sob, "If I do, they'll post the pictures immediately, and my reputation will be ruined." Chloe was sobbing uncontrollably, her voice filled with regret and helplessness. "Chloe, stop crying first. We'll figure something out together. We can solve this." Summer was panicking too, but she had to say something to comfort her. "How are we supposed to solve it? We have no money, and we can't call the police, unless we have someone powerful like Ethan Hawthorne backing us up." Sob, "I'm finished. My life is over." Chloe hung up the phone, still crying. But her last words made Summer freeze. That's right. If it were him, he could definitely solve this, right? But why would he help her? He was a high and mighty genius CEO, and she was just a broke college student. But right now, the only person who could save Chloe's reputation was Ethan Hawthorne. With that thought, Summer couldn't help but search for the location of the Hawthorne Group. A Fortune 500 company like that was easy to find. Staring at the address, Summer didn't sleep a wink all night. She was worried about Chloe, worried that her reputation would be destroyed. And she was also thinking, "Ethan Hawthorne, do you still remember?" The next day, Summer stood before the towering Hawthorne Group building, nervously twisting the hem of her shirt. A broke college student like her wouldn't even dare to dream of a place like this. Was she really going to go in? But the thought of Chloe softened her resolve. This was the only way to save her. Whatever, just do it. Summer took a deep breath. Just as she was about to step through the main entrance, she saw a familiar figure rush out of the doors. Move it to avoid bumping into her, the figure gently pushed her aside, but his fingers caught the end of her hair, pulling her hair tie off. Chapter 4, Found You. Summer yelped and just barely dodged the person. Her long hair cascaded down like a waterfall, and her makeup-free face stunned everyone for a moment. The figure jumped into a car, which immediately sped away. Several men in black who had been chasing him stomped their feet in frustration. Mr. Hawthorne SR has given a direct order. We cannot let the young master run from his engagement. This time, we have to arrange a meeting between him and Miss Victoria Prescott. What are you all standing around for? Go after him, the lead bodyguard roared, issuing the final command. Summer watched the car disappear into the distance, her heart trembling violently. It was like 3 years ago all over again. Though it was just for an instant, she had seen him clearly. That person was Ethan Hawthorne. 3 years ago, he had burst into her bathroom while running from his engagement. 3 years later, was he running from an engagement again? Phew, in the car, Ethan Hawthorne let out a long sigh of relief. Boss, you can't keep running. It's been so long, and you still haven't brought a girlfriend home to Mr. Hawthorne SR. The old man is eager for a great-grandchild. In the driver's seat, Ethan's subordinate, Marcus Finch, sighed helplessly. You're going to lecture me about marriage, too? Ethan's voice held a hint of anger, and Marcus immediately shut his mouth. Glancing back at the bodyguards they had shaken off, Ethan then noticed something in his hand. It must belong to that girl I almost ran into. Ethan opened his palm, and his body stiffened. There in his hand lay a light pink hair tie. It had a cute Hello Kitty charm on it. It was identical to the one he wore on his wrist. It even carried the faint scent of shampoo. That scent instantly transported Ethan back 3 years. The bathroom had smelled just like this. It's her. Ethan suddenly yelled at Marcus. Turn around right now. 3 years he had been searching for her for 3 whole years, but without a name, relying only on a hair tie and his memory, he had found nothing. Huh? Right? Marcus froze for a second, then immediately turned the car around. A look of excitement crossed his face. Boss, are you finally willing to go see Miss Victoria Prescott? No. Ethan's reply was crisp and clear. Tell my grandfather I'm bringing a girlfriend home. He can stop setting me up with random women. A girlfriend? Marcus almost crashed the car. He slammed on the brakes, stopping right in front of the Hawthorne Group building, his face a mask of disbelief. He had been by Ethan's side for years and had never seen him show interest in any girl, except for that one girl from 3 years ago, whose name and whereabouts were a mystery. Ethan jumped out of the car, his heart pounding with anxiety, but he couldn't find the face he had remembered for 3 long years. Did she leave? Ethan murmured to himself, then suddenly remembered the uniform she was wearing. Embroidered on it were the words, the Treehouse Pub. Go to the Treehouse Pub. Ethan got back into the car and gave Marcus his order. A smile he had never worn before touched the corners of his lips. 3 years, I've finally found you. This time, I won't let you get away. Manager, Chloe isn't feeling well, so I'm covering her morning shift. Summer had just arrived at the pub and finished signing Chloe in when the pub's door was pushed open. Welcome, what can I get for Chapter 5, your name? Summer looked up instinctively, but before she could finish her sentence, she met a pair of azure eyes. You. Summer's mind went completely blank. It was Ethan Hawthorne. Does he still remember me? Sir, what can I get for you? Summer forced herself to calm down, clearing her throat. A high and mighty CEO like him probably wouldn't remember her, right? I've been looking for you for a long time. But Ethan's next words made Summer's heart pound wildly. This is yours, isn't it? Ethan looked at the girl before him, still so pure, with a smile as bright as the sun, and a sense of relief washed over him. He had finally found her. Seeing the pink hair tie in his palm, Summer hastily lowered her head, staring at the tips of her shoes. Thank you for what you did 3 years ago. Ethan suddenly grabbed Summer's wrist, pulled her into a corner, and pressed her beside him. So, what's your name? 3 years ago, he had wanted to remember her name, but the pursuing bodyguards had forced him to flee in a hurry. Today, he had to know. Summer, I can't believe you still remember what happened 3 years ago. Summer felt like her heart was about to leap out of her throat. Her face was burning, and she didn't even dare to look at the man beside her. Of course I remember. Seeing her shy expression, a smile played on Ethan's lips. He leaned in and whispered in her ear. After all, we took a bath together. Boom. Summer wished she could find a hole to crawl into. She tried to get up and leave, but Ethan blocked her way, pinning her against the wall. You came to the Hawthorne group today to find me, right? At the mention of this, Summer hesitated for a moment, then suddenly summoned her courage and met his blue eyes. If it's possible, I'd like to ask you for a favor. Her voice held a trace of fear, as if she was afraid he would refuse. Hearing that fear, the man frowned in displeasure. Seeing him frown, Summer bit her lip and quickly said, "It's okay if you don't want to. I'll get back to work." He wasn't her friend or family, and their statuses were worlds apart. What right did she have to expect him to help? She had been too greedy. "Anything within my power, as long as you ask, I can do it." Ethan suddenly lifted Summer's chin. "So, I hope that when you talk to me in the future, you won't have that tentative, fearful tone. I won't refuse you. I won't refuse anything. Understand?" He won't refuse anything? Summer's racing heart suddenly stopped. A completely absurd thought popped into her head. Does that mean if I asked him to be my boyfriend, he wouldn't refuse that either? "Summer, what are you thinking? My friend," she was scammed. Summer calmed down and explained Chloe's situation, mentally scolding herself for having such a ridiculous idea. Ethan Hawthorne as her boyfriend? She wouldn't even dare to have such a daydream. "I see. Don't worry, your friend will be fine." Ethan immediately took out his phone and made a call, but he felt a strange sense of disappointment. Is that the only reason she came to find me? Chapter 6. She's my girlfriend, don't worry, it'll all be taken care of. Ethan hung up the phone and instinctively reached out to ruffle Summer's hair. He himself was taken aback. He had never been so naturally affectionate with anyone else. "Thank you." Summer blushed and thanked him earnestly. While the two of them were catching up in the pub, the Hawthorne mansion was in an uproar. "Mr. Hawthorne, I swear it's the absolute truth. The young master said himself that he would bring a girlfriend home. Please don't make things difficult for me." Marcus Finch looked fearfully at the old man before him. Though aged, he still commanded immense respect. Marcus cursed his bad luck, silently calling Ethan dishonorable for sending him back home to be a human shield. "HMPH, that scamp is going to find a girlfriend on his own. Do you think I'm getting senile?" Mr. Hawthorne SR snorted coldly. "Tell me the truth, where is that brat right now? If you don't talk, you can forget about working for the Hawthornes ever again." "Please, sir, I'll talk." The moment Marcus heard his job was on the line, he confessed immediately. "The young master is at the Treehouse pub right now." "Boss, you can't blame me for selling you out. You can only blame yourself for being such a hot commodity and still not having a girlfriend. Go bring him back to me," Mr. Hawthorne SR ordered, and a group of men in black immediately left the mansion. Why have you been wearing this on your wrist all this time?" Summer glanced at the hair tie on his wrist, her heart feeling warm. "Oh, it was a trend when I was studying at Harvard. You wear your girlfriend's hair tie on your wrist. Plus, when other girls see this, they'll know I already have a girlfriend." Ethan said it as if it were the most natural thing in the world, but Summer's brain felt like it had turned to mush. What does he mean by that? Is this a roundabout confession? He likes me? How is that possible? Summer instinctively patted her cheeks, trying to snap herself out of this absurd thought. Just then, a group of men in black burst into the pub. "Mr. Hawthorne, so you're here. Please don't make things hard for us. Won't you come back with us to see Miss Prescott?" The men were clearly there for Ethan. They stood in a line in front of him and Summer, their stance suggesting that if Ethan didn't agree, they would tie him up and drag him away. "I have a girlfriend, why would I go see her?" Ethan said casually, as if it were no big deal. "He has a girlfriend." For some reason, hearing those words made Summer's heart ache, and the light in her eyes dimmed. Right? How could someone as outstanding as him not have a girlfriend? He must love her very much, fighting against his family's wishes for her sake. "Young master, please don't joke around. You haven't had a single female friend around you for the past 3 years. How could you possibly have a girlfriend?" the bodyguard said with a look of resignation. However, their gazes couldn't help but drift to Summer, who was standing beside Ethan. Come to think of it, she was the first woman to be so close to the young master. Could it be? "Are you all blind?" Ethan suddenly frowned and wrapped his arm around Summer, ignoring her gasp. He stated coolly, "She is my girlfriend." Is that clear? Chapter 7. No chance to think about it. Faced with Ethan's sudden announcement, Summer felt like her brain had short-circuited. She completely forgot how to react, just standing there dumbly in his arms. It wasn't just Summer who was stunned. Even the men in black were too shocked to respond. What was going on? The young master, who had never shown an interest in women, suddenly had a girlfriend? It was unbelievable. What's wrong? Cat got your tongue. Seeing the completely dazed girl in his arms, Ethan couldn't help but chuckle and wave a hand in front of her face. He found this dumbfounded version of Summer utterly adorable. Huh. Oh, Summer snapped back to reality, but she didn't know what to say. Geez, why did I say, oh? I must look like such an idiot. Summer suddenly regretted her reaction. She felt she should have played it cool instead of freezing like she'd never seen the world. Would Ethan think less of her now? At that thought, she couldn't help but look up, trying to sneak a peek at Ethan's expression. But her furtive glance was caught by him. Ethan looked at her with a tenderness he himself didn't realize. I think I should get back to work. Oh my God, she was so embarrassed she didn't know where to look, where to put her hands, or what to do with herself. This wasn't working, she had to get back to work. Yes, that was at work, this was her chance to escape. With that thought, Summer prepared to scurry away, but her little plan was not to be. Ethan smiled helplessly and quickly grabbed her hand. Don't worry, you won't get fired for not going back to work right now. Ethan thought Summer was anxious to leave because she was afraid of being fired for slacking off. Young master. The men in black, still in shock, had finally managed to pull themselves together. They needed to confirm if their young master was being serious or just joking. After all, their young master was perfect in every way, except when it came to his love life, which was a constant source of worry for everyone. Their master, Augustus, had desperately wanted his grandson to find a girlfriend. But Ethan had remained single for so long that his grandfather had become desperate, lowering his standards to the point where any woman who loved Ethan would do. She is my girlfriend. Go back and tell my grandfather exactly that. I'll bring her to see him soon. Ethan's expression was anything but a joke. Yes. Well then, young master, we won't disturb you. The man in black looked as if a great weight had been lifted from his shoulders and immediately led his men away. As for meeting Victoria Prescott, that didn't matter anymore. The best news was that the young master finally had a girlfriend now. His grandfather could finally rest easy. Summer, however, was still in a state of disbelief. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. You shouldn't joke like that, it's not funny. My poor heart can't take this, a little voice screamed inside her head, but Ethan looked at her seriously. You don't get a chance to reconsider. Chapter 8. Chloe's suspicions, and just like that, Summer inexplicably became Ethan Hawthorne's girlfriend. She felt like she had spent the entire day in a daze. It wasn't until after work, when she returned to her apartment, that reality began to sink in. Her old place had been a bit far from both the university and her job, so a few days ago, she and Chloe had officially moved into a new apartment together. When Summer got home, she saw the lights were off and assumed Chloe was already asleep. She didn't turn on the lights, instead feeling her way carefully inside. Suddenly, with a click, the room was flooded with light. Chloe, having flipped the switch, padded over in her slippers and plopped down on Summer's bed, staring at her with a dead serious expression. What's going on? Summer was bewildered. Had something else happened to this girl? At that thought, Summer's expression grew serious as well, and she quickly walked over to ask Chloe what was wrong. But Chloe just glared at her. Stay right there, don't come any closer. Okay. Summer obediently stood still, looking as innocent as a schoolgirl who had done something wrong. Then she asked, Miss Chloe, what on earth has happened? Whenever Chloe was upset, Summer would try to cheer her up, and this time was no different, even though she had no idea what was going on. My problem was miraculously solved in a single day, Chloe said. Hearing this, Summer's face lit up with joy. She marveled at how efficient Ethan was. But then she was confused. If the problem was solved, why did Chloe still look so serious? So she asked, puzzled, That's great news, why do you seem so unhappy? Did something else happen afterward? No. The guys who scammed and threatened me suddenly started treating me with the utmost respect. It's weird, really weird, Chloe frowned as she spoke. The men who had been so menacing before were suddenly like different people. They didn't want the money anymore, they deleted all the photos, and before they left, they were all apologies and compliments. It was so bizarre she almost thought she was seeing things. Well, what's so strange about that? Maybe they just had a change of heart. Summer's voice trailed off as she grew more flustered. Chloe didn't know the truth, but Summer knew perfectly well that this was all Ethan's doing. But she couldn't just tell Chloe that she had gone to Ethan for help, could she? Knowing Chloe, if she found out, she would probably explode on the spot. She would endlessly question her about her relationship with Ethan, how they met. Just thinking about it gave her a headache. She didn't have the answers. Chloe, however, looked at her suspiciously. "Fess up, did you make some kind of deal with those people?" As she spoke, Chloe suddenly jumped off the bed, her face crumpling into a mask of distress. "Summy, I was just so scared and I don't have any other friends, so you were the first person I thought of. Please don't tell me you actually made some terrible deal with those guys for my sake." As Chloe spoke, she felt tears welling up. She really didn't want to bring harm to her best friend. Chapter 9, Laughably Exaggerated Guesses. Summer shook her head, feeling a wave of exasperation. She had never even met those people, so how could she have made a deal with them? Besides, what status or wealth did she have? Did Chloe really have no clue? To those men, she had absolutely no value to bargain with. Seeing Summer shake her head, Chloe's eyes widened as if another thought had struck her. She stared at Summer as if she were a living goddess and said, "I remember I mentioned offhandedly that it would be great if we had connections like Ethan Hawthorne." Whoa, don't tell me you. Seeing Chloe's eyes light up as she pointed at her and mentioned Ethan's name, Summer's heart skipped a beat. Did this girl guess something? No way she hadn't even fully processed her relationship with Ethan herself. Everything that had happened felt like a dream. If she admitted now that she was Ethan's girlfriend, what if he denied it tomorrow? That would be incredibly awkward. "Me? What me? Don't make wild guesses. I have no connection to Ethan Hawthorne. I don't know powerful people like that." Summer quickly denied it. But Chloe just said, "Of course I know you wouldn't know Ethan Hawthorne. What I meant was, have you been pretending to be poor and ordinary all these years? Are you actually the heiress of some major corporation? And for my problem, you just used your family's power to handle it, right? Is that it?" Chloe was practically vibrating with excitement, feeling like she had struck gold. Summer felt like she was going to die laughing at Chloe's absurd speculation. If she were really some corporate heiress, she wouldn't have to work so hard to pay for school. Summer sighed. Chloe really had read too many romance novels and was suffering from the side effects. "You're sick. You need help," Summer said, rolling her eyes and making an X with her hands to dismiss Chloe's theory. Chloe snapped her fingers again. "Oh, don't tell me you have a childhood sweetheart who turned out to be some tycoon, and he was the one who stepped in and saved your friend me from a terrible fate." Chloe blinked her big, innocent eyes as she spoke. "Dude, please stop your boundless imagination." Summer looked utterly defeated and shook her head vigorously. It's over. Chloe has read too many romance novels. She's a lost cause. Why is she always thinking about such unrealistic things? You're not a corporate heiress and you don't have a tycoon for a childhood sweetheart, so could it be? After several of her guesses were shot down, Chloe's heart started to race, and she suddenly shouted, "Oh my God. No way, Summy, don't tell me your dad is secretly a mafia boss." As she spoke, Chloe rested her chin on her hand, looking more and more convinced. After all, the men who had threatened her seemed pretty tough. They must have been suppressed by an even tougher gang to have let her off so easily. "Please return to Earth immediately and stop thinking like a Martian," Summer said, exasperated, giving her another eye roll. Chapter 10. Restlessness. You've met my dad. Does he look like he's in the mob? My whole family are law-abiding citizens. Besides, what century was this? A mafia boss? Did she think this was a cop movie? Summer couldn't be bothered with Chloe anymore. The girl really needed to take her meds. "No way, all my guesses are wrong. Then how was my problem solved? It was resolved way too smoothly. It was almost unbelievably smooth." Chloe was completely baffled. She had racked her brain but couldn't figure out why things had changed so quickly. Not wanting Chloe to keep guessing, Summer said, "Isn't it a good thing that it's solved? Would you rather still be threatened, living in fear while you scrape money together? Come on, don't think about it anymore. Whatever happened, it's over now." Thinking back on the nude photos and the threats, Chloe couldn't help but feel a lingering fear. At the same time, she was relieved that it was all over. So, hearing her friend's words, she stopped dwelling on it. Even though there were still many things she didn't understand, she didn't want to think about them anymore. The most important thing was that it was over, and neither she nor Summer had to live in fear. "By the way, I have classes tomorrow morning, so I probably can't cover your shift," Summer said as she packed her things. She only had 2 classes tomorrow, both originally scheduled for the afternoon, but the professor had a conflict and moved them to the morning. "I have class in the morning too. I already told the pub. I'm not working tomorrow, so we can go to campus together," Chloe said as she crawled into Summer's bed. Summer sighed but didn't push her out. The two of them squeezed onto her small bed for the night. The next day, as soon as Summer walked out of her classroom, she saw Chloe waiting by the door. She smiled and hurried over. Although Summer and Chloe were in different classes, their classrooms were close, and they both worked at the same place. So, they often went to class and worked together, and today was no exception. Chloe linked her arm through Summer's and they headed towards the university gate. Seeing the crowd, which seemed even larger than usual, she looked annoyed. "What are all these people doing? Did a god descend at the school gate or something?" Chloe grumbled, but she couldn't help craning her neck to see what was going on. It was the peak time for classes to end, but it had never been this crowded before, and the excited expressions on several of the girls passing by were impossible to ignore. What could they have seen to be so thrilled? Seeing their reactions, Summer grew curious too. Of course, her imagination wasn't as wild as Chloe's. She didn't think a god had come down to Earth. At most, she wondered if a big celebrity was filming at their university. It had happened before. "Maybe a male celebrity is here?" Summer guessed, looking at the overly excited girls. It was probably their idol. Chloe turned to Summer and blurted out, "Bieber." Summer's face darkened. For a split second, she seriously considered pretending she didn't know this fangirl extraordinaire. Chapter 11. Ethan Hawthorne's arrival. It wasn't until the two of them finally pushed their way to the school gate that they saw a car parked there. The window was down, and although they could only see his profile, it was clear that a very handsome man was sitting inside. He seemed to be on the phone with someone, and from a distance, they could see he didn't look pleased. Choppy cream blonde hair, skin so fair it seemed to glow. Summer's heart skipped a beat. Just then, the man in the car seemed to sense her gaze and looked up, his deep azure eyes meeting hers. A flash of surprise seemed to cross his face when he saw her. Summer quickly looked down, avoiding his gaze. She didn't want Ethan Hawthorne to notice her in this place, under these circumstances. She quickly tapped Chloe, who had instantly gone into fangirl mode. Let's go. We'll be late for work." "Don't come crying to me when they dock your pay," Summer said, pulling Chloe in another direction. But Chloe was reluctant. It wasn't every day she saw her idol at the school gate. She wasn't going to leave so easily. It's fine. Let them dock my pay. A day's wages won't kill me." Hey, stop pulling me." Summer ignored her protests and pulled her along forcefully. She might look thin and delicate, but she was surprisingly strong. Chloe had no chance to resist and could only let herself be dragged away with a mournful look. "Summy, sometimes I feel like you have the body of a young girl, but the soul of an old lady." She didn't even swoon at the sight of a god-tier man like Ethan Hawthorne. Instead, she acted like she was avoiding the plague. Chloe had never met a girl like her before. Summer just smiled wryly. She had a fangirl side too. Normally, if she saw such a handsome guy, she would swoon. But that was Ethan Hawthorne. Just facing him made her inexplicably nervous. Seeing him at the school gate today, her heart had pounded so hard she thought it would leap out of her chest. For a moment, she had even thought he was there to see her. The possibility was both exciting and terrifying. Exciting because she liked him, and terrifying because of her own insecurity. She felt that an unremarkable person like her had no right to stand by his side. After all, Ethan Hawthorne was so dazzling. Summer was afraid that if she stood next to him, she would bring him down and be the target of envy and hatred from all the other girls. "I wonder why Ethan Hawthorne is at our school gate. Looks like he's waiting for someone," Chloe said curiously. Summer pursed her lips. "Aren't you going to go change and get to work?" Meanwhile, Ethan watched the girl who had run away like the wind after seeing him. He felt a mix of helplessness and disappointment. He had come here specifically to find Summer. He had someone look her up and found out which university she attended, so he had driven over without a second thought. He had planned to wait for her here and then take her to see his grandfather, but he had clearly forgotten his own status and underestimated his own charm. The moment he got out of the car, he was swarmed by a group of girls. He had no choice but to retreat back into his car. As the peak time for classes ending arrived, more and more people gathered around his car, making it impossible for him to drive away. He had to call his subordinate to come and handle the situation. Chapter 12. Waiting for you after work, and just then, he saw Summer. He was initially surprised and pleased, but he hadn't expected the girl to bolt the moment she saw him. Finally free from the mob, Ethan looked at the Hello Kitty hair tie on his right wrist and smiled gently. Then he stepped on the gas and drove towards the Treehouse pub. Seeing the man appear in the pub again, Summer felt the urge to find an excuse to escape and have her friend Chloe cover for her. But he called her name directly. "Summer." "Hello, sir, what can I get for you?" Summer braced herself, put on a smile, and looked at Ethan. There was no hiding and no escaping. So she decided to pretend she didn't know him, especially since her big-mouthed friend Chloe was also there. She didn't want news of her and Ethan to spread all over campus tomorrow, with their relationship being blown out of proportion. They had just become a couple yesterday, and today she was being so distant. Ethan frowned slightly. He was a little unhappy with Summer's deliberate coldness. But he was willing to try to understand her and go along with her wishes, so he didn't show his dissatisfaction or any other emotion. He simply said to Summer, the same as last time, "Of course. One moment, please." Summer quickly mixed the drink, placed an olive in it, and handed it to Ethan. Just then, Ethan spoke. "I was serious about what I said yesterday." Ethan could clearly sense that Summer had feelings for him, but for some reason, she seemed very cautious when she was with him. Her slight timidity had not escaped his notice. Perhaps it was because of their different social statuses. Ethan had always been called a genius. If he didn't even have this level of observation, he would be letting down the title. So, when he thought of this to put Summer at ease and stop her from hesitating, he looked at her and said it again, seriously, confirming their relationship once more. "I'll wait for you after your shift." Ethan's expression was gentle, and he couldn't help but reach out and ruffle her hair. Hearing him state his position and confirm their relationship again and again, Summer's heart warmed. But Ethan's subsequent affectionate gesture made her freeze. She could feel a piercing gaze shooting towards her. "Oh no, Chloe saw that. What's wrong?" Ethan asked with concern. Summer didn't know how she got through the rest of the afternoon. Luckily, the pub was busy today, so Chloe was also occupied, and the two of them didn't have much chance to talk alone. This was the first time Summer was so grateful for a crowd of customers. She even wished for more, so that everyone would be too busy to gossip or wonder about her relationship with Ethan. Summer's nerves were on edge all afternoon until her shift ended. Just as she changed out of her uniform and was about to leave, Chloe cornered her. Chloe looked at her in amazement. "You actually know Ethan Hawthorne? How did you two meet?" Chapter 13. Confirming the relationship, well, don't even think about brushing me off. Did you ask him to help with that other thing too? The way Ethan looked at Summer, it was impossible that there was nothing between them. Connecting the dots with her own recent trouble, Chloe became more and more convinced her guess was right. She was sure their relationship was not simple. Summer sighed and decided to come clean. "We met 3 years ago." "No way, you've known each other that long. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Are we even best friends?" "You've been keeping this from me for so long," Chloe exclaimed, pouting as if she was upset with Summer. After all, she told Summer everything. Summer quickly covered her mouth. Chloe's voice was way too loud. Anyone who didn't know better would think something terrible was happening. She then said, "But it was an accident, and we never saw each other again after that. The next time I saw him was 3 years later. We're not actually that close. He didn't even know my name until recently." Summer was telling the truth. They had crossed paths 3 years ago, but they hadn't truly gotten to know each other. They weren't close at all. It was only recently that things had started to get complicated. Thinking about how seriously Ethan had looked at her and called her his girlfriend, Summer felt her face grow hot and a suspicious blush crept up her cheeks. Tusk, Tusk. Someone's blushing just at the mention of Ethan Hawthorne's name. "And I saw him touch your head. Don't you dare say you're not that close." Chloe wasn't an idiot. Who was Ethan Hawthorne? He was famous for being uninterested in women. For him to act so affectionately towards Summer today, anyone could guess what was going on. Chloe sighed and said, "Summy, are we still friends? You're being so secretive with me. I'm only asking because I care, not for any other reason. Are you afraid I'll tell someone, or that I'll be angry?" Chloe might have a big mouth, but she liked to think she knew where to draw the line. And even though she considered Ethan her ultimate idol, seeing him be so affectionate with Summer didn't make her upset. She genuinely considered Summer her best friend, and she couldn't be happier that her best friend had such an amazing boyfriend. "Chloe, I'm sorry. I didn't tell you because I wasn't sure myself," Summer said guiltily. Chloe's eyes darted back and forth. "So, does this mean it's official now?" Summer hesitated for a moment before nodding. "Probably, maybe, I guess. It's official." Chloe was about to say more when the manager's sharp voice cut in. "Chloe Jones, how long are you planning to slack off? Get back to work? Coming, Chloe grumbled. She was working the full shift today, while Summer was on the afternoon shift, so she wouldn't be off until late. As she walked away, she didn't forget to say to Summer, "Are you two going on a date later? Have fun, you can come home late." Then she couldn't resist adding, "You can even stay out all night." "Ha ha ha." Chloe's grin was mischievous. "You crazy girl," Summer couldn't help but make a face at her. Chapter 14. The date. Summer had always been a rather shy person. In her 20-something years, she had never been in a relationship. She didn't particularly enjoy interacting with boys, so her luck with them wasn't great, and her romantic prospects were few and far between. She considered herself ordinary and plain, and her social circle was astonishingly small. Other than the various people she met at her part-time jobs, she had absolutely no opportunity to meet people from so-called high society. And she had never dreamed that she would get to know someone like Ethan Hawthorne, a man who was so outstanding in every way that he seemed to glow wherever he went. She certainly never imagined she would become his girlfriend. Wasn't this the kind of plot you only see in a teen drama? Summer thought about this as she walked, and she couldn't help but sneak a glance at Ethan beside her. Her small movement was once again caught by him. Ethan looked at her with a half-smile. Just then, her stomach let out an ungracious growl. "Oh, for crying out loud, Summer, can you not be so embarrassing in front of your crush?" The little voice in her head screamed again. She realized she hadn't eaten since morning, not even breakfast. So she was genuinely hungry, but she really hadn't expected her stomach to betray her so loudly. Summer instinctively glared at her stomach, silently scolding it. "Couldn't you have held it in? Couldn't you have waited until after I parted ways with Ethan and got home?" "Ahem." Summer was incredibly embarrassed and coughed lightly, trying to ease the awkward atmosphere. "Hungry?" Ethan glanced at her stomach, his eyes crinkling with a smile. He naturally took her hand and said, "I'm hungry too. Let's go get something to eat." Although Ethan had driven, he didn't plan on driving to find a place to eat. Instead, he chose to walk slowly, holding Summer's hand. Feeling the softness of her hand in his, Ethan felt an immense sense of satisfaction, and a handsome curve appeared on his lips. As for Summer, her heart started to pound wildly again. "Oh my God. This isn't me just fangirling." This was the first time a boy had taken her hand, and miraculously, it didn't make her feel repulsed. In the past, if any boy had dared to take her hand, her immediate reflex would have been to shake it off. She wasn't one to casually hold hands with any guy. Feeling the warmth from his palm, a strange feeling welled up in Summer's heart. It was a warm, almost happy feeling. They walked for who knows how long, Summer following Ethan up a small slope and around a corner before he finally stopped. Before them was a small but cozy and simply decorated restaurant. The style is so rustic and fresh, yet simple. How have I never noticed this place before? Summer had been in Seaview City for 3 years and considered herself a seasoned foodie who had tried all sorts of restaurants, big and small. But she was sure she had never seen this place before. Ethan pulled her along and said, "This is part of my childhood memories." Chapter 15. A familiar restaurant as far as he remembered, this restaurant had been here since he was 5, making it 18 years old now. It had been rebuilt and renovated several times, but the decor had always remained simple, fresh, and rustic. And the people who ran it had hardly changed either. It was still the same familiar family. This wasn't a high-end restaurant, and the food wasn't some exotic delicacy. It was all simple, home-cooked fare, but it gave you a feeling of home. Over the years, Ethan had developed a habit of stopping by whenever he had free time to sit for a while and order a few dishes. and the family had long since become close with Ethan. Every time he came, they would bring him his favorite dishes without him even having to ask. Childhood memories? Summer was slightly taken aback. In her mind, people from families like Ethan's didn't usually have happy, innocent childhoods. She had probably been reading too many romance novels, just like Chloe, which was why she instinctively lumped Ethan in with those high-status, tragically childhooded male leads. "Yes, childhood memories," Ethan said as he led her inside. "Brother Ethan, hey, who's the pretty lady next to you?" As soon as they entered the small restaurant, a little boy who had been doing his homework at a small table ran over excitedly. But he froze when he saw Summer next to Ethan. In all his life, he had never seen his brother Ethan bring a girl here before. He then looked at their tightly clasped hands, and his mouth dropped open in an exaggerated O shape. Then, with a knowing look, he said, "Oh, this pretty lady must be brother Ethan's girlfriend, right?" The little boy finished with a suggestive wink, acting wise beyond his years. "Go on, you little rascal." Just then, a middle-aged woman came out of the kitchen. She smiled and gently tapped the boy on the head. Then she turned to Ethan and said, "Ethan, you're here the usual stir-fried pork with green peppers and a cabbage soup, right? Have a seat, it'll be ready in a minute." I'm not ordering today," Ethan said with a smile, looking at Summer. The woman finally noticed Summer and looked her over several times. Her gaze was kind and full of surprise, as if she were looking at a future daughter-in-law. "Oh, right, let your girlfriend order today. Whatever you want to eat, I can make it for you," the owner said as she led them to a table. Then she added with a look of relief, "Finally, there's a girl sitting across from Ethan at this table. Exactly, this table has become brother Ethan's special spot. My mom doesn't let anyone else sit here except him," the little boy chimed in again. Sometimes, when the restaurant was crowded, his mom would rather turn customers away than give up this spot for brother Ethan. And brother Ethan always came alone, with the seat across from him always empty. This pretty lady had finally broken the pattern. "Looks like love was in theater for brother Ethan," the owner scolded with a smile. "That's enough out of you. Go do your homework." But when she turned back to Ethan and Summer, her face was filled with gentle and unconcealable joy. Chapter 16. As long as my granddaughter-in-law is a girl, it's fine. By the time the two left the small restaurant, it was already dark. So Ethan decided to drive Summer home and find another day to take her to see his grandfather. "The owner and her family are so nice," Summer couldn't help but remark. That little restaurant and the family who ran it really did give off a warmth that felt like home. She found that she liked it there just as much as Ethan did. She decided she would definitely visit more often when she had time. "Yeah, I used to live around here, so I've been close with Auntie Flo's family since I was a kid," Ethan replied. He had lived here until he was 8, when his grandfather took him back to the Hawthorne estate. But in the years since, he had never forgotten this little restaurant or the family inside. Whenever he had free time, he would always come by for a visit. That family had given him a lot of warmth, especially the owner, Auntie Flo. Sometimes she felt more like a mother to him than his own. Seeing the sudden depth in Ethan's eyes, Summer guessed he was lost in childhood memories. So, she wisely remained silent, quietly keeping him company. After a while, Ethan emerged from his thoughts, started the car, and drove on. The car moved further and further away, its shadow stretching under the streetlights until it disappeared completely. The woman Ethan called Auntie Flo then went back into the restaurant, closed the door, and hung up a sign that read, "Closed." The next day, Ethan finally brought Summer to the Hawthorne estate. He had a feeling that if he didn't bring her to see his grandfather soon, the old man might just tear the house down. Summer was initially nervous, but after meeting Augustus Hawthorne, her apprehension vanished. Grandpa Hawthorne was even kinder and more approachable than she had imagined. He didn't seem to have any of the airs of a wealthy patriarch. Summer looked at the old man, who was smiling with his eyes crinkled, and politely greeted him, "Grandpa Hawthorne." But upon hearing this, the old man frowned, seemingly dissatisfied with the title. Summer's heart sank. Does he not want me to call him Grandpa? What am I supposed to call him then? She was at a loss and looked to Ethan for help. But then the old man said, "Drop the Hawthorne at the beginning. Just call me Grandpa." "Oh, hello, Grandpa." Summer quickly understood and, under the old man's expectant gaze, obediently called him Grandpa. Sure enough, the old man beamed. "I can tell you're a good girl, much more likable than this rascal here. Ha ha ha! I can finally rest easy. My standards aren't high. As long as my granddaughter-in-law is a girl, it's fine." Don't be fooled by the old man's high status and occasional sternness. He could be very easygoing. He had never believed that marriage had to be between families of equal social standing. When it came to his children's and grandchildren's marriages, he was very open-minded. He had always believed that as long as his grandson was happy and the other person was a girl, that was all that mattered. "That's just how Grandpa is. Don't mind him," Ethan said, feigning a look of disdain at his grandfather. Chapter 17. The mysterious friend Summer, who had been feeling completely insecure, suddenly felt that maybe she wasn't so bad after all after meeting Grandpa Hawthorne. And maybe she and Ethan weren't as mismatched as she had thought. Grandpa Hawthorne's approval instantly restored her confidence. Summer told herself she shouldn't sell herself short. Instead, she should look on the bright side, be positive, and work hard to become a better version of herself. But on the way back, Marcus's words made her feel sad again. It's great that the young master has a girlfriend. Now he can finally get rid of Victoria Prescott and not have to worry about his grandfather forcing him into marriage again, Marcus said happily as he drove. When Ethan didn't respond, he added, "Right, boss." "Just drive," Ethan said, pretending to lift his leg to kick him, which scared Marcus into shutting up and focusing on the road. The words were spoken casually, but Summer took them to heart. Marcus's comment had chipped away at the confidence she had just regained. She was afraid that Ethan had been in such a hurry to announce she was his girlfriend and take her home to meet his grandfather largely to get rid of Victoria Prescott and escape the pressure of a forced marriage, not because he truly liked her. But this time, Summer was smarter. She didn't let her feelings show on her face, so Ethan didn't notice anything was wrong. As for Ethan, he knew in his heart that he did have a bit of a selfish motive. He didn't want his grandfather to keep pressuring him into marriage. But more than that, he genuinely had feelings for Summer and wanted her to be a part of his life, which was why he had brought her to see his grandfather. The next day, although they were in the same major, Summer and Chloe were in different classes, so their schedules were often different. For instance, this morning, Chloe had no classes and went straight to work, while Summer's morning was packed with classes. So she had to say a quick goodbye to Chloe and go to campus alone. During the break between classes, while her classmates were chatting, Summer was busy organizing her notes. "Summer, someone's here to see you." "Who is it?" Summer looked up, confused. She had been in Seaview City for 3 years, but she didn't know many people. Chloe was at work, and Ethan was busy. She couldn't think of anyone else who would come looking for her. And if it were Ethan, it would definitely cause a commotion, but things seemed quiet, so it probably wasn't him. The class president shook his head. "I don't know who she is. It's a girl, and she's quite pretty." "Quite pretty." A boy shook his head and chimed in. "You call that quite pretty?" "She's drop-dead gorgeous. I wouldn't say she could launch 1,000 ships, but she's definitely a knockout. Look at that face, that body." "You're a creep," the class president said with disdain. The boy was indignant. "You're just jealous. I'm just appreciating beauty." Summer didn't bother listening to their bickering. She got up and walked outside. She was puzzled. As far as she knew, Chloe was her only good friend. Why was there a beautiful girl looking for her now? Who could she be? Summer wondered as she walked. "You're Summer," the beautiful girl across from her asked first. Chapter 18. The showdown. To avoid causing a scene, Victoria Prescott had chosen a relatively quiet spot to wait for Summer. When she saw her approaching, she couldn't help but look her over carefully. "And you are." Looking at the woman opposite her, with the face of an angel and the body of a devil, Summer felt a strange sensation. From her clothes and the natural air of nobility in her every move, she knew that she and this girl were not in the same league. Victoria, however, extended her hand gracefully, a perfect smile on her face. "Victoria Prescott." Sure enough, upon hearing the name, Summer's expression dimmed. Victoria caught the flicker of insecurity in her eyes, smirked, and added, "Ethan Hawthorne's fiancé." When the word fiancé left Victoria's lips, Summer felt a tightness in her chest. Looking at the gap between herself and Victoria, it wasn't just a small gap. But in the next second, Summer coolly masked her insecurity. She smiled back and extended her hand to meet Victoria's. "Hello, I'm Summer. It's a pleasure to meet you." no matter how inferior her status, appearance, or figure was compared to the person in front of her. She would not show her insecurity. She told herself there had to be some areas where Victoria was not as good as her, so she didn't need to feel overly self-conscious. Seeing how quickly the other girl had composed herself, Victoria frowned slightly. It seemed she had underestimated Summer. "No, I came here today to upset her, to make her back down. I need to add more fuel to the fire." So Victoria continued, "Ethan may be the genius CEO of the Hawthorne Group now, but deep down, he's still like a child who hasn't grown up. He can be rebellious at times. He's always loved his freedom and hates it when others interfere in his love life." I can see that," Summer said, taking a seat across from Victoria and responding noncommittally. From the moment she knew who her visitor was, she had guessed she was in for a fight. She had never met Victoria Prescott before, but she had heard the name more than once. The woman Ethan had run away from marrying. Summer wasn't stupid. She knew Victoria's intentions without her having to spell them out. It was nothing more than trying to get her to leave Ethan, but her feelings weren't a commodity to be given away. She liked Ethan, so she wouldn't just leave. Summer looked at Victoria and said, "I haven't known him for very long, so I probably don't know him as well as you do, Miss Prescott. Thank you for telling me all this today. But my class is about to start, so I should be going." Since she had figured out Victoria's motive, Summer didn't want to listen to her anymore. She was afraid of what Victoria might say next and decided to find an excuse to leave. But Victoria wasn't done. She said, "In the past, Grandpa Hawthorne was worried sick about Ethan's love life and set him up with many women, including me. Knowing Ethan's personality, the more people interfere, the more he resists. That's why he ran away from the wedding." Chapter 19, Victoria's motive. When Summer didn't respond, Victoria continued, "But running away isn't a solution, and he knows it. As long as he doesn't find a girlfriend to put Grandpa Hawthorne's mind at ease, he'll never escape the pressure of a forced marriage." "Miss Prescott, what exactly are you trying to say? I'm sorry, but after all you've said, I still don't quite understand." Summer smiled. She was deliberately playing dumb. After all, Victoria had been beating around the bush without getting to the point, so pretending not to understand didn't seem too out of line. Hearing this, Victoria's expression soured. She had worked so hard to maintain her gentle, elegant facade, and she was afraid she would lose her temper and just tell Summer to get lost. So she took a sip of her drink to hide her annoyance and said, "So, to shut Grandpa Hawthorne up and to relieve himself of the pressure of a forced marriage, he had to find a girlfriend quickly. You know, you're not that special." "Thank you for the reminder," Summer said. She didn't know what expression she was wearing. "You should know your place. Without you, he could have found a better shield," Victoria said, emphasizing the word shield, her tone dripping with scorn. That's right. In Victoria's eyes, Summer was just a shield. And a shield of her status was, in Victoria's opinion, dragging Ethan down. Summer was, of course, unhappy, but she couldn't say anything. She just said flatly to Victoria, "My class is starting soon. Please help yourself." This time she was truly hurt. In this relationship with such a huge disparity in status, she had always been insecure and uneasy. She had been preparing to adjust her mindset and be more positive. But then someone had to come and repeatedly remind her of the insurmountable gap between their social statuses. Although she had received a very serious confirmation from Ethan that she was his girlfriend, she was now scared. She was afraid that while Ethan might like her, it was more like what Victoria had said. Summer was afraid he valued his freedom more than he liked her, that her existence was not that of a true girlfriend, but more of a shield. Victoria watched Summer's expression change again with satisfaction. She stood up and said with a superior air, "Sometimes, being born into what you call a wealthy family can be a burden. But I can use my status to help him in small ways, while you can't. The road ahead is long. You'll understand eventually." Victoria then paid the bill and walked out. Summer smiled bitterly. "That's right. With my status, I can't help him with anything. Sometimes, I might even cause him trouble and be an embarrassment, right?" Summer barely heard a word of her next class, her mind completely blank. She didn't even realize class was over until a classmate called out to her. "Hey Summer, class is over. Aren't you leaving?" Chapter 20. The first girl I've ever liked after school, Summer went to the Treehouse pub to work. There weren't many customers today, so the afternoon was relaxing. Before she knew it, it was time to clock out. Seeing Ethan leaning against his car, waiting for her, Summer initially wanted to ignore him. But she couldn't resist his gentle expression. She surrendered and decided to temporarily put aside the morning's unpleasantness and walk towards him. "What's wrong? You don't look well. Are you not feeling okay?" Ethan asked with concern, walking towards her and naturally reaching out to feel her forehead. But before his hand could touch her, she avoided it. "I'm fine," she replied, her expression blank. Summer's sudden distance left Ethan feeling a little dejected, but he figured she was just shy and that she would get used to it if he gave her some time. So, he didn't say anything more. With a slight feeling of rejection, he took her hand and led her towards the car. On the way, Summer was silent, lost in thought. Ethan couldn't help but ask again with concern, "Are you really okay? If you're not feeling well, we can go see a doctor. We can reschedule dinner with Grandpa." Whenever the old man was happy, he liked to host dinner parties and invite people he liked over. Ethan was used to it. And today, his grandfather was ecstatic and insisted that he bring Summer home for dinner again. For both personal and professional reasons, he was more than happy to take Summer home more often, to let her spend more time with his grandfather and get to know the Hawthorne family. But seeing her looking unwell, he was naturally worried. Taking her to the hospital seemed more important than any dinner party. "I'm really fine, don't worry. I'm just tired from work today. I'll be fine after a little nap," Summer said, then closed her eyes, pretending to sleep. When they arrived at the Hawthorne estate and walked into the grand hall, Summer's body stiffened for a moment when she saw Victoria Prescott's familiar face. She wondered why Victoria was here. At the same time, when Ethan saw Victoria, his face clearly showed his displeasure. He did not like this woman, even though everyone around him spoke highly of her. "Is this brother Ethan's new girlfriend?" Victoria was the first to break the awkward silence, pretending it was the first time she had seen Summer. She said, "New girlfriend," and the snide tone of her voice made the displeasure in Ethan's eyes deepen. "This is the first person I've ever liked, and my current, official girlfriend, Summer," Ethan said, naturally taking Summer's hand and leading her past Victoria further into the room. He felt he had made himself clear enough this time. He didn't think Victoria could misunderstand. In his opinion, this woman was shameless. He had run away from their wedding 3 years ago, yet she was still pestering him. Ethan's love life had always been simple, and he was a loyal person when it came to relationships. Chapter 21, The Family Dinner. Ethan's romantic life was not complicated. So, besides Summer, he had no intention of getting entangled with any other woman. His words to Victoria were, therefore, blunt. Faced with Ethan's attitude, Victoria was naturally upset, but she didn't dare to throw a tantrum. After all, she had to maintain her image and try to make Ethan see her good qualities. So she shot a venomous glare at Summer's back and followed them. When she saw Ethan pulling out a chair next to him for Summer, she quickly sat down in it herself. "Thank you, brother Ethan," Victoria said with a sweet smile. Ethan's expression remained blank, and he didn't respond. He simply took Summer to another spot and sat down. Just then, Augustus Hawthorne walked in from outside, supported by a middle-aged, beautiful woman. Her features resembled Ethan's, but her demeanor was different, more serious, and excessively cold. Summer thought she must be Ethan's mother, but then Ethan leaned over and said, "This is my aunt." "You scared me. I thought she was your mother," Summer said, relieved. At least it wasn't Ethan's mother, or the pressure would have been immense. Summer didn't know if it was her imagination, but when she mentioned the word mother, something flashed in Ethan's eyes so quickly she couldn't decipher the emotion. She was puzzled. Ethan had never mentioned his mother, and this was her second time at the Hawthorne estate, and she still hadn't seen her. As if a thought struck her, she looked at Ethan with concern and a hint of apology in her eyes. Ethan just smiled gently and ruffled her hair, a gesture that said everything. To Augustus, the scene was heartwarming and he couldn't stop smiling. But to Victoria, it was an eyesore. She wished she could slap Summer and make Ethan stop looking at her. "Is this Ethan's girlfriend?" the beautiful woman asked, looking at Summer after she and Augustus had taken their seats. Summer politely greeted her, "Hello, Aunt." Summer thought it was basic courtesy, but the woman seemed unimpressed and even let out a cold snort. "Ethan, is this the precious girlfriend you were talking about?" The woman didn't spare Summer another glance, turning to Ethan with a cold tone. Ethan met her gaze and nodded calmly. "I hope my relationships are decided by me, and only me." The woman was about to say more, but Augustus shot her a look that silenced her. "The more I look at this girl, Summer, the more I like her. She's a good kid, a great match for this rascal Ethan," Augustus said cheerfully, then turned to his daughter. "This is not our business. Let the young couple handle it themselves." "Dad, have you forgotten what Mom said back then? It's because your mother made too many mistakes that I can't bear to let anyone interfere with Ethan's relationships and let him follow in his father's footsteps." Chapter 22. Aunt the old man's face was grim, but the woman Ethan called his aunt did not drop the topic that had clearly angered him. She continued, "But this was Mom's final wish. Dad, you know how much Mom doted on Ethan. She was worried about his marriage even on her deathbed." When Augustus didn't reply, she went on, "Mom was a bit obsessive before, but she realized her mistake. Victoria was her personal choice. She's a perfect match for Ethan in every way. How would marrying her be a disservice to him?" "That's enough," Augustus said, clearly exasperated with his daughter. This younger daughter of his had the same stubborn personality as her obsessive mother. If she had truly realized her mistake, she wouldn't be meddling in Ethan's love life. In the end, she still didn't get it. In fact, his previous attempts to push Ethan and Victoria together were partly out of a selfish desire to honor his late wife's wish, and partly out of fear that Ethan would never get married, end up a bachelor for life, or worse, bring home a man. That's why he had been so eager to pair his grandson with Victoria. But at the time, Ethan hadn't objected, so Augustus had mistakenly thought he liked Victoria too. He never expected Ethan to run away from the wedding. And now that Ethan had found someone he truly liked, Augustus would, of course, support his grandson unconditionally. Now, even bringing up his late wife was useless. He had never liked to interfere in his children's and grandchildren's relationships, and he certainly didn't want the tragedy of Ethan's father to repeat itself. All right, Aunt, please say a few less words." "Grandpa, don't be angry," Victoria said, playing the role of the considerate peacemaker, which made Ethan's aunt even more fond of her. But Ethan's eyes were icy. He had never been close to his grandmother or this so-called aunt. Yet, these two people repeatedly tried to interfere in his life, which was infuriating. Seeing Ethan's dark expression, Victoria tried to sound affectionate. "Ethan, don't be angry. Aunt is just looking out for you. I know you don't like this, but please try to understand her. Do you have any idea what you're saying?" Ethan was annoyed, but he kept his composure and spoke calmly. This woman's sense and sensibility were sometimes shockingly low. She was foolish but thought herself clever. Saying such things at a time like this would only make people dislike her more. Ethan continued, "In what capacity are you saying this? As family, a girlfriend, or a fiancé?" He didn't forget to glance at Victoria. Obviously, she was none of the above. As things stood, Victoria was a complete outsider to him. A smart person would have chosen to stay silent, which might have earned her some goodwill from him. But Victoria seemed desperate to show off her familiarity with the Hawthorne family in front of Summer, trying to prove something. Her attitude, as if she were already the young mistress of the Hawthorne family, only disgusted Ethan further. Victoria looked aggrieved. Chapter 23. Overstepping a hum. Augustus Hawthorne coughed twice, signaling to Ethan to watch his words and not make Victoria cry. After all, it was the Hawthorne family who had proposed the engagement and then broken it. So they should be polite to Victoria when necessary. "All right, today was supposed to be a happy day. Let's not have any more nonsense ruining the atmosphere," Augustus said, glancing at his daughter. Then he turned to Victoria. "Grandpa knows you love seafood. I had the kitchen prepare a lot for you today. Go on, try some." "Thank you, Grandpa." Although Augustus tried his best to dispel the earlier unpleasantness and lighten the mood, the atmosphere was still strange. Summer felt that the meal was uncomfortable, the air was oppressive, and she didn't know what to do or say. Luckily, her phone rang. Summer quickly apologized and stepped aside to answer it. She was incredibly grateful to Chloe for calling at that moment. "Oh my God, I finally have an excuse to leave." After hanging up, she said apologetically, "I'm so sorry, something came up with my friend, I have to go." "What's wrong? Did something happen to your friend?" Augustus asked with concern. No, it's nothing. I just need to go check on her. Grandpa, I'm so sorry I can't stay for dinner. I'll definitely have a proper meal with you next time. Nothing had happened to Chloe, but she had to lie to get away. This atmosphere was only getting more oppressive. It was better to leave. Ethan saw right through her, but he didn't expose her. He was planning to leave too. He said to his grandfather, "I'll see her out." "Ethan, Victoria is still here. Is it really appropriate to leave your guest like this?" His aunt couldn't help but say, "Between my girlfriend and a guest, I will, of course, prioritize my girlfriend." "Ethan, your grandmother." Ethan's face darkened. This aunt of his was meddling too much. She knew he disliked his grandmother the most, yet she still brought her up. His tone grew colder. "Aunt, sometimes it's not good to overstep your boundaries. I'm really looking out for you. Look at this so-called girlfriend of yours. In what way, from her looks to her family background, can she compare to Victoria? To put it bluntly, for a prominent family like ours, if we marry a woman like her, will she even be presentable in high society? Forget about helping you, we'd be lucky if she doesn't embarrass you." His aunt's words grew harsher, making no secret of her disdain for Summer. Victoria was delighted to hear this, but Ethan's face was as dark as a thundercloud. Even Augustus, who had just calmed down, looked grim. Summer was also fuming. What kind of aunt was this? She was clearly just trying to stir up trouble. She wasn't even Ethan's mother, yet she was so meddlesome. But then, the familiar feeling of insecurity crept back in, and his aunt's words replayed in her mind. A huge weight seemed to press down on her, making it hard to breathe. Chapter 24. Keeping herself busy, the more serious Ethan was about her. And the nicer Grandpa Hawthorne was to her, the greater the pressure on Summer became. She didn't want to be a burden to Ethan, and she certainly didn't want to embarrass him. But things like status and family background were not things she could control. After that day, Ethan didn't show up for the next 2 weeks. During that time, they didn't even exchange a single phone call. Summer didn't know what he was busy with. At first, she didn't think much of it. Everyone has their own things to do, and she could understand that. But as time went on, she couldn't help but overthink. That's just how women are. Sometimes, when they start overthinking, they can't stop. And to make matters worse, Chloe would occasionally say things that just added to her anxiety. And here she was again, "Summy, do you think Ethan has been influenced by his aunt and is starting to reconsider your relationship? After all, our world is so far from theirs." When Summer didn't answer, Chloe continued, "Aren't you worried? Count the days. How long has it been since he last contacted you? You've only been dating for a short time. This is supposed to be the honeymoon phase where you can't get enough of each other. But it seems like you've skipped straight to the cold shoulder phase. Dude, I'm begging you, please be quiet. I need to study, okay?" Summer rolled her eyes at her. This girl knew she was already upset, yet she deliberately brought this up. Was she trying to make her even more miserable? "Hey, you have to do something, or Victoria Prescott is going to steal him away." Summer put her head in her hands, pointed at Chloe, and said helplessly, "Okay, I know nothing good ever comes out of your mouth. The greatest gift you could give me right now is your silence." Summer felt that if she listened to Chloe for another second, she would probably cough up blood. All right, I'll stop talking. Pretend I didn't say anything. Study. Chloe made a zipping motion across her lips and then sat down quietly to study, looking as if she were the most dedicated student in the world. For the next few days, to stop herself from overthinking, Summer threw herself into her work, sometimes not even looking at her phone. Chloe was so worried she thought Summer had gone off the deep end. "Summy, everything I said the other day was just nonsense. Please don't take it to heart. Really, Ethan isn't that shallow. He wouldn't give up on you because of your status or outside pressure." Chloe had been feeling guilty for the past few days. She thought Summer was working herself to the bone because of what she had said. "What did you say? Did you say something to me? I forgot," Summer said nonchalantly, putting down her book and looking up at her friend with a reassuring smile. "I'm graduating soon, so I need to focus on my thesis. I won't let other things affect my mood. Really, I'm not lying. I've already forgotten what you said," she explained, trying to ease Chloe's guilt. Chapter 25. The guest speaker, still no call from Ethan Hawthorne? Chloe couldn't help but bring him up again. Then she quickly slapped her own mouth and looked at Summer cautiously, afraid she had upset her again. Summer just shook her head. "No. Hey, you, don't worry, he must have his reasons." Maybe he'll show up one of these days, Chloe said, trying her best to find comforting words. She had learned her lesson and didn't dare to say anything reckless, but Summer just smiled. I'm not worried. I'll just let nature take its course. She said she wasn't worried, but her heart was filled with unease. She realized that she cared about Ethan more than she had thought. She didn't know what to do now, so she could only let things be. Even if they ended up breaking up, she wouldn't blame anyone. By the way, isn't there a lecture today? Summer changed the subject, trying to distract both Chloe and herself. At the mention of the lecture, Chloe's face lit up with excitement. She had heard that today's speaker was a young, successful, rich, and handsome CEO of some corporation. But she didn't know who it was. The university had done an excellent job of keeping it a secret this time. Listen, when we go in, let's try to sit in the front. If there's a QA session after the lecture, we'll stand up a few times and ask some questions to make an impression. We'll go all out in using connections mode. Chloe grinned like a cunning fox. She had already decided to make her presence known and get the speaker to notice her. Maybe a romance novel plot would unfold for her. Don't you usually fight to sit in the back? And she was never this enthusiastic, even for extra credit questions. Why the sudden change? This wasn't like Chloe at all. Summer was full of questions. She suspected the girl had taken the wrong medicine today, but Chloe just winked at her with a mischievous smile. The speakers before were usually old men. Of course, I wasn't interested. But today's speaker isn't some old man. I heard he's a super handsome guy. Oh my God. Could you be any more of a fangirl? Of course, Chloe said shamelessly. Look at me, I'm not bad looking, right? If I show my face in front of the handsome guy a few times and make a deep impression, my chances will be pretty good. Right, your chances are great. You go make an impression. I'll just sit in the back and pretend I don't know you, Summer thought. No way. Chloe grabbed Summer's arm, looking as if she would strangle her if she dared to pretend she didn't know her. Wherever I sit, you sit. When I'm making an impression, you do it too. If we do it together, one of us is bound to be his type. If he's not into me, maybe he'll be into you. Then you won't have to be hung up on Ethan Hawthorne. Chloe's voice trailed off as she saw Summer's face darken. Chapter 26. It's actually him. The auditorium was so packed today it felt like it was about to burst. Summer had never seen anything like it. This wasn't just a lecture, it was like a superstar's concert. Looking at the excited girls around her, Summer suspected they would be screaming and waving glow sticks the moment the speaker appeared on stage. Chloe had wanted to sit in the front, but it was already full. So she had to follow Summer to a seat in the back, pouting. Are you sure everyone is here for the lecture? Summer couldn't help but ask. Chloe replied, they're not mainly here for the lecture, they're here to see the person. Look at those girls in the front, how excited they are. Tusk. As Chloe spoke, she glanced at the girls in the front row. The next second, she almost screamed herself. Luckily, she covered her mouth in time, or she would have been utterly embarrassed. The guest speaker, he. Oh my God, Chloe felt like she couldn't even speak. Summer was bewildered. She followed Chloe's gaze to the stage, and her reaction was almost the same. She covered her mouth, staring at the person on stage as if she had seen a ghost. You're shocked too, right? My God, I can't believe our university managed to get him to give a lecture. The staff were now quieting the audience, and the auditorium fell silent. No one dared to make a sound. So, Chloe suppressed her excitement and whispered. But Summer seemed not to have heard a word Chloe said. She just stared blankly at the man on the stage. Ethan Hawthorne, whom she hadn't seen for 2 weeks, was now standing right there, in their university's auditorium. Today, he was dressed in a sharp suit, exuding a unique charm with every move. He was now walking towards the podium. Hello everyone, I'm Ethan Hawthorne. It's an honor to be here to give this lecture. Ethan's deep, magnetic voice rang out, and the auditorium erupted in thunderous applause that seemed to go on forever. Under the lights, his soft, choppy hair glowed with a creamy gold, so dazzling it was hard to look at. His already fair skin seemed almost unreal under the lights, and his chiseled face radiated a commanding presence. He raised a hand to signal for silence, and the audience immediately quieted down, the thunderous applause vanishing in an instant. His lecture was interesting and brilliant. In just one session, it felt like you had learned a lifetime of wisdom. Even the usually composed old principal couldn't help but get teary-eyed and applaud until his hands were red. And Summer once again felt the gap between them. She felt she could never reach Ethan's level. From the moment he stepped on stage, Ethan had been discreetly searching for Summer in the crowd. So now, feeling her gaze, he looked straight at her, his eyes full of tenderness. "Excuse me, do you have a girlfriend?" A few girls in the front row couldn't help but ask, their hearts fluttering. Hearing the question, Ethan smiled gently and replied, "Yes, I do." His eyes never left Summer. Whoa, someone started it, and then the whole auditorium erupted in a frenzy. Chapter 27, Deliberate Provocation. Everyone was buzzing, trying to guess who Ethan Hawthorne's girlfriend could be. A more gossipy boy even asked out loud, "Can you tell us who she is? Where is she now? Who is it that brought her to you?" The boy started singing, and the atmosphere in the auditorium became incredibly lively. But Ethan just smiled. "She's here today in the audience. Wow, this is huge. Who? Where? Come on, stand up and let us all meet you." Yeah. Let us see which girl saved the entire galaxy in a past life." There was another commotion in the audience, but Summer felt flustered. Before Chloe could react, she fled the auditorium. The incident quickly made the news, and reporters started buzzing, determined to find the mysterious girlfriend from the story. And Victoria Prescott, who never missed any news about Ethan, naturally saw it right away. "Miss this." The bodyguard next to her looked at the newspaper, then at Victoria's gloomy face, unsure of what to say. "Notify everyone that I'm holding a press conference. The more people that come, the better," Victoria said through gritted teeth. She was going to hold a press conference to publicly emphasize her engagement to Ethan. No matter how much Ethan denied it, it was a fact. After all, their engagement had not been formally broken. Victoria thought that as long as the engagement was not officially dissolved, she was still Ethan's fiancée, and Summer was, in her eyes, the other woman. Victoria's press conference went smoothly, just as she had hoped. The Prescott family had bribed several reporters to play along. So, during the QA session, the reporters cooperated perfectly, their words sharp and clearly painting Summer as a drama queen, an attention seeker trying to climb the social ladder by using Ethan. Summer, of course, saw it on TV. Although the reporters didn't mention her by name, she knew she was the drama queen they were talking about. Listening to their harsh words made her feel sick. "Summy, you worked hard today, keep it up, I'm heading out," Chloe said. She had something to do, so she left early, and Summer had to cover the rest of her shift. Summer waved at her, then tried to shake off the unpleasant thoughts and got back to work at the bar. "One margarita," a pleasant female voice said at the bar. The margarita was once known as the Queen of Cocktails, one of the most famous classic cocktails in the world besides the martini. But people rarely ordered it at this pub. So, when she heard a girl order it, Summer couldn't help but look up to see what kind of girl with a story she was. But as soon as she looked up, she met Victoria Prescott's gaze. The woman who had been holding a press conference yesterday, subtly and not so subtly calling her shameless, was now standing right in front of her. Summer suppressed her annoyance and put on a professional smile. "Of course. One moment, please." "No tequila, no Cointreau, no lime juice, thank you," Victoria said with a raised eyebrow. Chapter 28, Your Margarita. Summer frowned. Victoria was clearly here to cause trouble. She had listed all the ingredients for a margarita. How could she make one without them? Did this woman have nothing better to do? "I'm sorry, miss, but what you're asking for is impossible. Perhaps you'd like to see what else you'd like to order." Although Summer was annoyed, she didn't let it show too much. After all, she was an employee of the pub, and Victoria was a valued customer. "Is that so?" Victoria's face fell. "What did your boss hire you for? If you can't even mix a drink, are you just here to be a spoiled princess?" Victoria's voice grew louder, causing people in the pub to turn and look, but no one stood up for Summer. They were all just there to watch the show. Just then, the manager hurried over. She kept up with fashion magazines and high society news, so she recognized Victoria's face. Seeing that it was Victoria Prescott, the heiress of the Prescott Group, she didn't even bother to ask Summer what had happened and immediately started reaming her out. "What is wrong with you? If you can't do your job, then get out. Is that how you speak to your proprietress?" A deep, magnetic, and incredibly familiar voice said. Ethan Hawthorne walked out from the crowd. His deep azure eyes stared coldly at the manager. He spoke slowly. You, make me a margarita with no tequila, no Cointreau, and no lime juice. Right now. His tone was calm, but he exuded an icy aura that was suffocating. The manager's heart sank. Ethan raised an eyebrow. What? Where did your arrogant, I can't tell right from wrong attitude go? Go collect this month's salary and get out. Ethan despised sycophantic people like the manager, so he fired her on the spot. Ever since he had found out Summer worked at this pub, he had been planning to buy it. The handover had been completed a while ago. He was now the ultimate boss of this pub. If he wanted someone gone, they were gone. Ethan, what are you doing here? Victoria said with a broad smile, trying to get closer to him. But a cold glare from Ethan stopped her in her tracks. Ethan looked at her, then walked straight to the bar, took the glass from Summer's hand, held it under the tap at the sink, turned on the water, and when the glass was full, turned it off. Then with a half-smile, he handed the glass to Victoria. Your margarita. Ethan, don't joke around. Victoria's face was a mask of embarrassment. But Ethan's expression was unyielding, leaving no room for refusal. Under the weight of his powerful presence, Victoria finally took the glass of margarita. Ethan made a polite please gesture, not taking his eyes off her. Victoria looked miserable, staring at the glass of water as if it were poison she couldn't possibly drink. Ethan, I was just making a little joke earlier. I wasn't trying to give anyone a hard time, Victoria said, putting the glass down and feigning innocence once more. Chapter 29, tearing Victoria Prescott to shreds, but it was obvious Ethan wasn't buying her act. She pressed on. Ethan, let me be clear. I am still your fiancé. Our engagement has not been officially broken. As long as it stands, I am your fiancé, whether you admit it or not. Victoria's voice grew louder, ensuring everyone in the pub could hear that she was Ethan Hawthorne's fiancé, and Summer Miller was nothing. Miss Prescott, if I recall correctly, I made myself perfectly clear to you before. Hearing Victoria's hysterical shouts, Ethan's gaze darkened. The woman's audacity was truly on another level. He continued in a low, chilling tone. Perhaps the reception on your end is poor, so you haven't been receiving messages in a timely manner. When you get home, you should ask your father about our so-called engagement. The moment Victoria had finished her press conference, Ethan had personally taken action to sever all ties with the Prescott family, but she clearly didn't know that yet. Ethan, what do you mean? Victoria asked, panicked. But Ethan seemed to have no interest in wasting another word on her. He took Summer's hand and started to leave, but Victoria blocked their path. Ethan, what's so great about Summer? What do I lack that she has? Why is she the only one you see? Victoria's voice cracked, and she shot a venomous glare at Summer, her carefully crafted image completely forgotten as she spat. Have you even looked in a mirror? You think a piece of work like you can compete with me for a man? Summer, you'll be thrown aside sooner or later. The only reason Ethan treasures you now is because you're a novelty. Hearing this, Summer wanted nothing more than to punch her, but she restrained herself to just thinking about it. As she was about to speak, Ethan protectively pulled her behind him. From the look on his face, it seemed he was about to tear Victoria to shreds himself. Sure enough, Ethan's voice was ice cold. In my eyes, she's better than you in every single way. Before Victoria could open her mouth to argue, Ethan cut her off. Wipe that disgusting look off your face before my disgust for you reaches its absolute peak. Summer is my girlfriend, and one day she will be my wife. As for you and your entire Prescott family, you have no right to set foot in the Hawthorne estate ever again. Ethan's words were brutal, a blow not only to Victoria, but to the entire Prescott group. As powerful as the Prescotts were, Ethan Hawthorne clearly held them in contempt. If you or your family try any more of your little tricks, don't say I didn't warn you. With that final warning, Ethan took Summer's hand and walked out. For years, the Prescott group and his aunt had been colluding behind the scenes, pulling strings. He had often turned a blind eye, but now that they were trying to involve Summer, he would show no mercy. It was time to deal with the Prescott group and his so-called aunt. Summer, I'm so sorry. I promise nothing like this will ever happen again, he said, referring to Victoria. He was certain that after today's warning, neither Victoria, the Prescotts, nor his aunt would dare to try anything again. Chapter 30. The mother of my children's Summer could no longer hold it in. She asked him what he meant and what he had been doing for the past 2 weeks. These past few days, I've been thinking a lot. I told myself not to overthink things, but we haven't seen each other in 2 weeks. You didn't even call. It's impossible not to overthink. I don't know what's on your mind, so I want to ask you now, what do you want from this? Summer stared down at her toes, unable to look him in the eye as she finally let out the words she had been holding back. I'm sorry. I've made you suffer these last 2 weeks, Ethan apologized first. He knew how upset Summer must have been, but he had truly been swamped with matters that needed his full attention, which was why he hadn't contacted her. Ethan stepped forward and pulled Summer into his arms, holding her tightly. It had been too long. He had truly missed her. Holding her now, breathing in the familiar scent of her shampoo, he felt an overwhelming sense of peace and happiness. These past 2 weeks, I've been handling things with the Prescott family, he explained. It's all resolved now, so I'll have plenty of time for you from now on. In that time, Ethan had worked to transfer all business collaborations between the Hawthorne and Prescott families. Now, there were no ties left between them. The relationship was completely severed, and the Hawthornes had emerged unscathed. Will the Prescotts just let this go? Summer asked worriedly. She knew their influence was not to be underestimated. She feared they might rally other business partners to retaliate against the Hawthornes. Ethan smiled dotingly and reached out to ruffle her hair. Don't worry, he said softly. The Prescotts are no threat to the Hawthornes. The Prescotts couldn't cause any significant trouble, and no company would dare risk offending the Hawthornes by allying with them. Summer's worries were unfounded, but her concern warmed Ethan's heart. It showed that she truly cared for him and was taking their relationship seriously. All right, you don't need to worry about a thing for me. All you need to know is that you are my girlfriend and you will be my future wife. Are you serious? The words future wife hit Summer like a lightning bolt, making her head spin. She quickly looked up, the question tumbling out of her mouth before she could stop it. Are you serious? Ethan nodded with a smile. Of course, he was serious. He looked at her earnestly and said, I couldn't be more serious. Then, raising an eyebrow, he looked at the little woman in his arms with a playful glint in his eyes. Are you ready to level up your status and become Mrs. Hawthorne, the young mistress of the Hawthorne family? Or maybe, on top of that, level up again and become… Ah, shut up! Summer clapped a hand over his mouth, her face burning with embarrassment. This man, he was either silent or saying things that left her utterly defenseless. The tenderness in Ethan's eyes deepened, the affection practically overflowing. What? You don't want to marry me? To be my wife? To be the mother of my children? Chapter 31. Enter the cringy magical girl. Time flew by, and soon it was Halloween. Chloe Jones seemed even more excited than usual. Summy, this Halloween is going to be epic. Our class is throwing a small Halloween-themed party. It's optional. Are you going? Chloe looked at Summer with hopeful eyes. She was definitely going and desperately wanted Summer to come with her. But it was clear that Summer wasn't very interested in the class party. After all, she had already made plans with Ethan to go to the amusement park. So Summer shook her head, telling Chloe she wouldn't be able to join her. I have plans tomorrow, so I'm sorry I can't go with you. How about this? I'll treat you to dinner next time, okay? Summer said, gently poking Chloe's cheek as her friend's face fell into a pout. Nothing cheap. I want the most expensive meal. I want to empty your wallet in one night. Looking at the childish but adorable Chloe, Summer couldn't help but laugh. I'm treating you to the cheapest thing on the menu. My wallet can't afford expensive. Chloe gave her a sly look. Your wallet can't, but Ethan Hawthorne's wallet certainly can, right? I'll just hit him up for the cash. If he wants to win the fair lady, he's got to feed her best friend right, my beautiful Summy. Chloe nudged Summer playfully as she spoke. Summer, looking like she couldn't stand Chloe's antics, took a few steps back to dodge her. You dare try to blackmail him? Summer said, feigning a serious expression. Chloe just laughed harder. You're not even married yet, and you're already this protective. Oh my, our dear Summer is growing up. She's got a man and has forgotten all about her best friend. In her heart, Chloe was truly happy for Summer. She was seeing her friend grow more and more comfortable in her role as Ethan Hawthorne's girlfriend, no longer shying away from it, and sometimes even openly embracing it. Perhaps it was because she finally felt secure, but Summer was no longer as self-conscious about her relationship with Ethan. She had learned to appreciate herself and was actively working to become an even better person. Chloe Jones, are you looking for a fight? Take this, Summer shouted, lunging forward playfully as if to strike her. Chloe struck a ridiculously over-the-top pose, as if ready to receive the blow. Your feeble skills are no match for me. Behold my cosmic youth super invincible magical girl fist. Getting into the spirit, Summer played along. Oh no, my opponent is too powerful, I almost couldn't block it, but luckily, I too have a secret technique, the cosmic youth super invincible, even more magical than a magical girl super beauty punch. The two of them were having a blast in their shared apartment. Outside the door, Ethan listened to their impossibly cringy dialogue, a wide smile spreading across his face. He never knew Summer had such an adorable, geeky side. He didn't knock, not wanting to break the joyful atmosphere inside. Instead, he turned, went back downstairs, and drove away. Chapter 32. Stunning because Summer had a date with Ethan, Chloe volunteered to be her makeup artist and stylist. Summer had been a bit worried at first, as Chloe's skills could be hit or miss. But today, Chloe had truly amazed her. Staring at her reflection in the mirror, Summer's eyes widened in disbelief. So, aren't you impressed? Chloe said, giving her a wink. She continued smugly, I told you I was good, didn't I? I'm a future world-class makeup artist and stylist. The best in the world. Yes, the best in the world, Summer agreed, genuinely pleased with her look. Here, put on these heels, and you'll be the hottest thing on the street. Like a magician, Chloe produced a pair of shoes from behind her back and urged Summer to put them on. Summer looked at the ridiculously high heels and quickly shook her head. She was better off in her own shoes. She was afraid that if she put those on, she'd break her neck before she even made it out of the dorm. No, I'll stick with the shoes I have on. Fine, have it your way. Chloe waved her hand dismissively, then peeked downstairs. Ethan has probably been waiting for a while. Hurry up, grab your bag and go. Got it. Oh, and don't forget you still owe me dinner, Chloe shouted as Summer headed for the door. Summer nodded. I know, I won't forget. When Summer came downstairs and appeared before Ethan, a look of genuine surprise and awe flashed in his eyes. Summer wasn't the kind of girl who was strikingly beautiful at first glance, but she was easy on the eyes with a comfortable and pure aura. Her smile was sweet and warm, like a small sun, full of healing energy. Her best feature was her pair of clear, bright eyes, which gave an immediate impression of purity and kindness. Normally, Summer didn't wear much makeup or pay attention to fashion, so her natural advantages were often overlooked. But today, with her exquisite makeup and sweet styling, she was different. Chloe had masterfully highlighted her best features. The Summer standing before him now possessed a new level of charm. Noticing Ethan staring at her, Summer immediately felt self-conscious and instinctively lowered her head. Maybe I should go back, wash my face, straighten my hair, and change into my regular clothes. But Ethan quickly grabbed her hand. You look beautiful today, he said. So, where are we going? Summer couldn't take a compliment without blushing. Feeling that she couldn't let him see how flustered she was, she covered her shyness with a small cough and quickly changed the subject. Ethan thoughtfully opened the car door for her. First, I'll take you to get something to eat, and then we'll head to the amusement park. He naturally knew that she had probably skipped breakfast again to get ready. Okay, Summer nodded. She was actually starting to feel hungry. Chapter 33. Strawberry ice cream. After filling their stomachs, the two headed to the amusement park. Wait here for a second, Ethan said softly, letting go of Summer's hand before quickly walking off in another direction. Summer had no idea what was going on but guessed he had something to take care of. She didn't ask, simply waiting obediently for his return. Miss, would you like to buy a balloon? A small, sweet voice asked. Summer felt a little hand tugging at her skirt. She looked down. It was a little girl, about 6 or 7 years old, with 2 pigtails and adorable rosy cheeks. Looking at her, Summer felt her heart melt. She smiled. How much are the balloons? Mommy said $6 each, the little girl said, holding up 6 fingers. She then scratched her head and added, but if you don't have money, you can trade 6 pieces of candy for 1 balloon. Summer found the little girl's earnest expression utterly charming. She rummaged through her bag. She had a habit of always keeping some candy with her, no matter where she went. Today was no exception, and she was glad for it, because her candy finally had a purpose. She pulled out a handful of sweets, knelt down, and offered them to the little girl. Here, these are all for you. Summer said, unable to resist gently ruffling the girl's hair. The little girl took the candy and picked out a pink balloon for her. Here, this balloon is for you. I don't have anywhere to put a balloon. Just consider the candy a gift because you're so cute, Summer said with a gentle smile. In the sunlight, her smile was as bright and radiant as the sun itself. She was so captivating that even Ethan, watching from a distance, was mesmerized. After the little girl left, Summer turned around to see Ethan walking toward her with a smile, holding 2 ice cream cones. So you left to buy ice cream? Strawberry, I thought you'd like it. Ethan handed one of the cones to her. It was his first time in a relationship, and he had no experience. He had even done some research the day before, and discovered that most girls seem to love ice cream. One article even said that for some girls, happiness was as simple as having the boy they like buy them a strawberry ice cream cone. So when he saw an ice cream stand, he couldn't resist buying 2, though he wasn't sure if Summer would like it. Thank you, Summer said, taking the cone, a sweet feeling blooming in her chest. He had guessed right. She adored ice cream, especially strawberry. Do you know why I like strawberry ice cream so much? She asked with a smile as she licked her cone. There's a story behind it. What story? Ethan asked, curious. He was eager to hear more about her, to understand her better. When I was little, my family was very poor. To give me a better education, my parents worked tirelessly to send me to what was considered a private elementary school in our town. I didn't fit in there, so I was bullied a lot. As Summer spoke, it was as if she was transported back to that time. Chapter 34. Ambience in the haunted house. After a pause, she continued. One day after school, a group of mischievous boys cornered me and wouldn't let me go home. I remember crying so loudly. Then, the old man who ran the school's tuck shop came running over. He chased the boys away, comforted me, and gave me a strawberry ice cream. From that day on, Summer had loved strawberry ice cream. To her, it felt like the warmest gift and the most delicious thing in the world. Seeing the warm smile on Summer's face, Ethan felt a pang of heartache. He had never imagined that her childhood had been spent enduring such cruelty. At that thought, he tightened his grip on her hand, his eyes filled with a new determination. He would protect her future. He would never let her suffer again. Eventually, at Summer's suggestion, they found themselves at the haunted house. As they entered, Summer felt a flicker of fear, but it was mixed with a thrill of excitement. She had never been in a haunted house before. This was a first for her. She had always been curious about them, but was always too chicken to go in. She and Chloe had passed by them several times, and despite Chloe's repeated pleas, she had never agreed to set foot inside. But today, she was actually here, and it had been her own idea. The thought amazed her. If that girl Chloe found out, she would probably lecture her for days. What? Getting nervous? Ethan's lips curved into a smile. Beneath his mask, his azure eyes held an extra layer of mystery and allure. Summer braced herself, coughed a few times, and put on a brave face. Me, what's there to be nervous about? It's not my first time in a haunted house. I'm just worried you'll be scared. She was a master at bluffing, terrified but pretending she wasn't, her first time but acting like a veteran. Ethan, of course, saw right through her. But he was smart and considerate enough not to expose her. Instead, he squeezed her hand tighter. It's my first time, he said. I need to hold your hand tight or I might get nervous. Don't worry, I'm here. Summer's voice trailed off as her confidence waned. She felt both cowardly and overcompensating, as if she had just stolen the hero's signature line from a romance novel. Ethan knew she was terrified, so he subtly moved her behind him, taking the lead. For a while, they didn't encounter any actors dressed as ghosts. Summer figured they hadn't reached the scariest part yet. Lost in thought, she wasn't watching her step. Suddenly, her foot slipped and she nearly fell. Careful! Ethan's reflexes were sharp. He caught her, pulling her gently into his arms. Summer found herself lying in his embrace in a rather intimate position. Looking at Ethan's sensual lips beneath the mask, she unconsciously swallowed. At that moment, Ethan began to lean in closer. Seeing her subtle reaction, his eyes crinkled into a smile, and the corners of his mouth curved into a perfect arc. Then, he lowered his head and covered her lips with his. Chapter 35. Her dependence on him, they continued walking, and the deeper they went, the creepier the atmosphere became. The background music was making Summer's skin crawl. She stuck close to Ethan, her eyes darting around nervously, terrified that something would jump out from an unknown corner. Just as she glanced back, something did lunge out from a corner behind her. Then, from a prop that looked like a television set, a long-haired head emerged, followed by a ghost in a white gown slowly crawling out of the screen. The scene, combined with the creaking sound effects, was enough to make anyone's hair stand on end. Summer was clearly terrified. She let out an instinctive scream, her small hand gripping Ethan's sleeve tightly. "Don't be scared, it's fake," Ethan quickly reassured her. "But it's still so scary, as the ghost fully emerged from the TV and began to shuffle toward them. Summer screamed again, squeezing her eyes shut and burying her face in Ethan's chest. Ethan was naturally delighted by her spontaneous embrace, but seeing the little woman in his arms trembling with fear, he gently patted her back and murmured, "Don't be scared. I'm here. Don't be afraid. If he comes any closer, I'll punch him for you." "Okay, beat him to a pulp," Summer whimpered, truly petrified. She huddled in Ethan's arms, not daring to open her eyes or move. At that moment, she felt that only in his embrace could she find any sense of security. The actor playing the role of Sadako froze for an almost imperceptible moment upon hearing their conversation. If one looked closely, they might have seen his mouth twitch. He seriously wondered if the woman in Ethan's arms was scared out of her mind. She seemed to have completely forgotten that the so-called ghosts in the haunted house were just people in costumes. And now she wanted her boyfriend to beat them to a pulp. This was a tough way to earn a living. If you didn't scare people, you were accused of being bad at your job. If you did scare them, you had to risk your life like this. Being a haunted house actor was hard. Don't talk, stay away." The moment the ghost spoke, Summer shrieked in terror, demanding that he keep his distance. The Sadako actor looked helpless but obediently took a few steps back. "It's okay, Summer. He's far away from us now," Ethan said, holding her as he walked forward. Hearing this, Summer slowly opened her eyes. Still shaken, she looked around and saw that the ghost was indeed at a safe distance, and she let out a sigh of relief. Then she felt a wave of embarrassment. Her reaction had been completely over the top. Was I super embarrassing just now?" She couldn't help but ask Ethan. Ethan just smiled. It was adorable. That's right. To him, she had been incredibly cute. He had never seen this side of Summer before. In that moment, for the first time, he felt her genuine dependence on him. Chapter 36, The Love Rivals Summer. Hearing the name, the actor playing Sadako felt a jolt of recognition, and a hint of joy crept into his voice. Because Summer was wearing a mask, he hadn't recognized her at first. But when he heard Ethan say her name, it clicked, and he hurried a few steps closer. His sudden movement successfully terrified Summer once again. This time, however, she didn't scream. Instead, she grabbed Ethan's hand and started running for the exit. Ethan didn't say anything, letting her lead the way. They ran until they were outside the haunted house, where Summer finally breathed a true sigh of relief. But then she saw the person in the Sadako costume had followed them out and was now leaning against a nearby wall, panting heavily. "Why is she following us?" Summer whispered, hiding behind Ethan. She peeked out from behind him, her eyes wide with fear as she stared at the costumed figure. Ethan looked at the person, equally bewildered. He wondered if the employee was a little too dedicated to his role. Had he gotten too into character? They were already out of the haunted house. Why was he still following them? But the actor quickly pushed aside his long wig, pointed at Summer, and then at himself, saying excitedly, "Summer, it's me, it's me." Summer was completely confused. She clearly didn't know this person. "How do you know my name? Who are you?" As far as she could remember, she didn't know anyone who worked at the amusement park's haunted house. The man took a few more steps forward, but stopped under Ethan's icy glare. He continued, "You probably don't remember me. My name is Leo Gardner. We went to the same high school and now the same university. I'm in the computer science department, so even though we're at the same school, we don't get many chances to see each other." Leo Gardner. Summer racked her brain, but the name didn't ring any bells. She gave up. She truly had no memory of this person or his name. "That's right, Leo Gardner. My dad is a huge fan of the singer Jackie Cheung, and so is my mom, so that's how they came up with my name," Leo explained, scratching his head in embarrassment. "I remember I even went to your classroom once to give you a love letter." Someone had given her a love letter? Summer was incredulous. She had never received one in her life. If she had, she would definitely remember it. Her love life had always been non-existent. Any boy who gave her a love letter would have been a rare species indeed. "You really gave me a love letter?" she asked doubtfully. Beside her, Ethan's expression was thunderous. He glared at Leo. "This kid's got some nerve, giving my girlfriend a love letter." "Yeah, but you weren't in the classroom. I think your class had PE next, so almost no one was there. I just secretly slipped it into your desk," Leo explained sheepishly. At this, Summer's jaw dropped. She quickly snapped it shut, an awkward smile spreading across her face. She finally remembered. That piece of paper she had thrown away, thinking it was trash. It must have been Leo Gardner's love letter. Chapter 37. "My dear wife, did you read the letter?" Leo asked, his eyes full of hope. Summer felt even more awkward. She had mistaken it for trash and thrown it out. How could she have read it? I'm sorry. Maybe you put it in the wrong place or gave it to the wrong person. I never received any love letter," Summer said apologetically, but Leo was insistent. "I wouldn't mistake you for someone else. You're the one I like. I've had my eye on you since high school, but every time you saw me, you'd walk away so quickly. You probably never really noticed me." Ethan, standing beside them, was thoroughly annoyed. A love rival had appeared out of nowhere, followed them out of a haunted house, and was now reminiscing and unilaterally declaring his feelings. It was as if he, the actual boyfriend, didn't exist. Anyone would be upset. Ethan cleared his throat. With a cold expression and a sharp gaze directed at Leo, he turned to Summer and asked, "What would you like to eat later?" "Chloe told me there's a really good noodle shop near here. It shouldn't be too far." Summer had wanted to try that place for a while but never got around to it. This was the perfect opportunity. Ethan affectionately wrapped an arm around her shoulder. As he led her away, he said loudly, "Then we'll do as you say. Whatever my dear wife wants to eat, we'll eat." That "my dear wife" was clearly meant for the love rival standing nearby. As expected, Leo froze on the spot, his eyes filled with a flicker of despair. Ethan was very satisfied with this result. He was staking his claim, letting everyone know that he, Ethan Hawthorne, was Summer's boyfriend and future husband, and no one else was allowed to even look her way. As for Summer, when she heard him call her his wife, a jolt went through her. Her jaw nearly hit the floor. She suspected Ethan must have taken the wrong medicine this morning. She let him lead her away. But then, as if remembering something, she turned her head to look at the stunned and dejected Leo. "Sorry, we have to go now," she said, feeling it was rude to leave without a word. Ethan didn't want his girlfriend to pay any more attention to his rival. He would have preferred for her to leave without another word. But his own manners compelled him to turn as well. He addressed Leo. "It's rare for old classmates to run into each other, but we have other plans, so we can't stay. I'll treat you to dinner on Summer's behalf sometime in the future. Goodbye." With that, Ethan gave a polite nod and then turned, guiding Summer away. His words were both gentlemanly and another clear assertion of his claim, a perfect 2-for-1. Leo stood there, a look of utter desolation on his face. His first love was over before it had even begun. From Summer's reaction, it wasn't hard for Leo to guess that she had no feelings for him. But he still felt a sense of unwillingness. After all, Summer was the girl he had liked since high school, the very first girl he had ever liked. Chapter 38. Summer's counterattack. Even though Leo knew Ethan Hawthorne was powerful and influential, and that he was no match for him, he couldn't let it go. He didn't want the first girl he ever liked to be snatched away by someone else. So he made a secret decision. He would make his presence known to Summer more often at school and do his best to win her over. He believed that, aside from background and status, he was in no way inferior to Ethan. Of course, this was just his own opinion. A man with a hunchback can never see it himself. In the following days, Leo truly did show up outside Summer's classroom every day to make his presence known. Unfortunately for him, Summer rarely left her seat during breaks, preferring to sit and read. Unable to see Summer, Leo decided to start with her best friend, Chloe. He tried all sorts of ways to please Chloe, hoping to win her over and get her help in pursuing Summer. He was so persistent that Chloe wanted to punch him on several occasions. "Hey, aren't you tired of this? How many times are you going to show up in one day?" Chloe rolled her eyes in exasperation. This guy was driving her crazy. He had already appeared twice during a single short break. Leo just smiled placatingly. Not at all, not at all. I'm just out of options, so I was hoping a kind and beautiful junior like you could help me out. Chloe said snidely, even if you feed me until I'm stuffed and win me over completely, you still won't be able to win Summer over. Why not? Why not? Dude, why do you think? Summer already has a boyfriend, okay? And her boyfriend is the famous genius CEO of the Hawthorne Group. Chloe's eye roll was epic. Leo didn't like hearing that. He retorted like a disgruntled youth, so what? Is being rich and powerful such a big deal? You can't measure love with things like that. He looked at Chloe with disdain and continued, take away the Hawthorne family, take away all his titles, and what is he? I'm different. Everything I have, I earned through my own hard work. I believe that one day, Summer will see my efforts, see my sincerity, and accept me. Listening to his self-righteous speech, Chloe felt a headache coming on. This guy, he was probably living in his own little world. Talking to him was useless. Chloe shook her head, about to walk away when she saw Summer approaching. She waved and called out to her. Leo also turned, about to speak to Summer, but she beat him to it. First of all, thank you for liking me. But I think you should be clear on this. I don't like you, and I have no interest in being your friend or getting to know you better. The person I like is Ethan Hawthorne, and the only boyfriend I will ever have is Ethan Hawthorne. Summer looked at him calmly and continued, compared to people who gossip, casually judge others, or slander them, I prefer people who keep their mouths shut and work hard. Ethan's achievements are not as simple as you think. Even without the entire Hawthorne family behind him, Ethan Hawthorne would still be a force to be reckoned with. Summer hadn't wanted to bother with him, but she couldn't stand by and listen to him badmouth Ethan. Chapter 39. Victoria Prescott apologizes after that day. Leo Gardner truly never appeared again. Summy, you're a total badass. You shut that kid down so hard he couldn't even get a word in, Chloe said, full of admiration. She had never realized Summer could be so articulate and sharp-tongued. Summer just smiled dismissively. Some things are better dealt with sooner rather than later. Some words need to be said early to save everyone trouble down the road. That was just who Summer was. Once she was certain of her feelings, she wouldn't back down, nor would she entertain any entanglements with anyone other than her boyfriend. She didn't like Leo, so she told him directly. She believed that cutting ties early and making him give up was the right thing to do. As for Leo's behavior of casually speaking ill of Ethan behind his back, Summer found it utterly repulsive. That was why she had spoken to him so sternly that day. She wouldn't allow anyone to maliciously slander her boyfriend, because she knew better than anyone what kind of person Ethan truly was. Hey, any plans today? Another date with Ethan? Chloe nudged Summer with her elbow, a teasing smile on her face. But Summer shook her head. No plans, he has some things to deal with at his company. Lately, Ethan had been busier than ever, so they only saw each other once or twice a week. With graduation approaching, Summer was also swamped, so their dates had become less frequent. Looking at Chloe, Summer said, I'm paying you back for that meal I owe you today. So what do you want to eat? Hearing that Summer was treating, Chloe's eyes lit up. I want to feast the most delicious, most expensive meal. Let's go, I recently discovered a new place. I hear the food there is amazing. Chloe grabbed Summer's arm and started pulling her toward the school gate. But Summer put on a serious face and said, no ordering the most expensive thing. Anything over $50 is out of the question. Ah, you're so cheap, Chloe wailed dramatically in response. Just then, the sound of high heels clicked behind them. Victoria Prescott spotted Summer and hurried to catch up, calling out her name. Miss Prescott, can we help you with something? The moment she saw Victoria, Chloe stepped forward, protectively shielding Summer behind her like a mother hen. She eyed Victoria warily. Chloe had no good impression of Victoria Prescott whatsoever. She felt the woman was vicious and cruel. Not long ago, she had even tampered with Summer's thesis, trying to prevent her from graduating. Luckily, Ethan had intervened and solved the problem. Otherwise, thinking of this, Chloe's gaze toward Victoria grew even more hostile. Miss Prescott, wasn't harming our Summer once enough for you? The fact that she's not pressing charges is the greatest mercy you could ask for. What are you trying to pull this time? I am so sorry for what I did before I apologized to you. Summer, I'm truly sorry. Victoria looked at Summer, her attitude uncharacteristically sincere. Victoria's sudden apology stunned not only Chloe but Summer as well. Chapter 40. Welcome to my future team. It was well known that a spoiled heiress like Victoria Prescott never apologized, even when she was in the wrong. Her sincerity now was truly unexpected. Seeing Summer remain silent, Victoria continued, I know I've done a lot of wrong things, and I'm not asking for your forgiveness. I'm going abroad the day after tomorrow. I won't appear before you again, and I won't bother Ethan anymore. It's just what? Summer had a feeling that Victoria's next words were the real point, so she prompted her. Sure enough, Victoria stepped closer, her face pleading. I'm begging you, when you see Ethan, please persuade him, ask him to let my father go. That's not something Summer can decide. Begging her is useless, Chloe interjected. She knew a little about what had been happening with the Prescott family lately. The news had been full of it. Summer, of course, also knew what had happened. This isn't about whether he lets your father go or not, she said. Even if he doesn't testify, do you really think the authorities will just let your father off the hook? After saying her piece, Summer couldn't bear to look at Victoria's utterly desperate expression any longer and left with Chloe. A week later, shortly after Victoria had gone abroad, the Prescott family was officially investigated. The chairman of the Prescott Group, Victoria's father, was tried and imprisoned. The once glorious Prescott family fell from grace, never to recover. Meanwhile, Summer successfully graduated and, like everyone else, began the process of job hunting. Chloe, with her passion for styling and design, along with her strong natural talent and rapidly improving skills, was scouted by an entertainment company, successfully achieving her dream of becoming a makeup artist. Summer, on the other hand, was still casting a wide net, trying to pick her favorite from among several companies. Summy, guess what? I'm starting to work with some celebrities, big and small, hahaha. I love my job so much it's like a dream come true for a fangirl. Maybe one day I'll even get to do makeup and styling for my own idol. On the other end of the phone, Chloe was chirping like a happy little magpie, sharing her joy with Summer. Summer smiled. Congratulations, I'll be counting on you to support me from now on. Tusk, you have a titan at home. Why would you need my support when you have his? Chloe teased. All right, I have to go. I have an interview soon. I'll call you later, Summer said, hanging up and heading toward the company where she was scheduled to interview. Summer cleared her throat as she walked. To be honest, she was a little nervous. It wasn't her first interview, but for the others, she had been calm and detached. This company was different. It was Ethan's own company. How could she not be nervous? She didn't know what she had been thinking when she agreed to come for an interview for such a huge corporation. The competition was bound to be fierce. With a nervous heart, she walked into the office, only to find Ethan Hawthorne waiting for her and no one else. Welcome to my future team, Ethan said with a broad smile, opening his arms wide.